really conflicted, and it's I love football and am addicted to it and miss it. I was at the Oregon State spring game yesterday, the first time I'd been around football since our last game in December, and it was strange, and it's hard.
I was on a plane about a year ago, and Alex Mack, I have a knack for sitting next to NFL players on planes. And so I'm like, oh, wow. And he starts asking me things like, what's your favorite book? And I'm like, wow, this guy's really smart. He went to Berkeley. So I start unleashing on the guy. And he's like, I'll call you when I'm done playing. Don't say anything else. You know, it's tough to hear these things when you're actively playing and you love it. As far as watching it, I used to go to the Super Bowls. My business partner's an NFL Hall of Famer. I love football too. My son loved football with all his heart. I didn't watch Super Bowl this year. It's hard for me to see the plastic helmets because I've done so much research. I actually know what plastic does. So it's difficult to watch. If some of those things changed, perhaps I wouldn't feel as uncomfortable.
You know, when I got out of the game, which of course wasn't, you know, the way I planned on leaving. You know, I was 23 years old. I just had my third brain surgery in 9 months, and I was done. There was no, you know, by George, and that's what people don't realize, that when you're done, it's not like, okay, hey, great job, thanks for being here. You're just gone. Your name's taken off the roster, and it's like you don't exist there anymore. But unfortunately, I was thrown to the wolves and fought, you know, the lawsuit, the creditors for years trying to get my brain surgeries paid for. So I literally did not watch a football game for probably 6 or 7 years. I was so freaking disgusted by it all. And you have to understand that to even play the game, I mean, you can play basketball and kind of like it, and play baseball, you know, and kind of like it. Football is a game you have to love to play it, because it is so physically demanding that it's not fun unless you love it. So that was a very tough thing for me. Over the years, I kind of mellowed out and I started watching games. Even to this day, if I watch part of a game, someone can walk in and ask me what the score is, and I don't know. I'll be watching the game like I watched a film. I can tell you, well, the defensive tackle had a hell of a, you know, arm over move or whatever. But a few years ago, it was crazy. I was watching a game, not even really paying attention. My wife walked in the room, and she said, how can you watch that when you know what they're doing to those young guys? And I tell you what, from that day on, I stepped back. I thought, you know what? I know what's happened to these guys, and again, I'm not anti-football, but I can't watch it. I see a big hit, which in the old days, Chris and I mean, that used to get your blood pumping. I played a total of 12 or 13 years, and I carried the ball twice. You know, my whole game was knuckles in the dirt hitting people, so it was all about the violence of the game for me. And I can't even watch anymore.
I should say that we just have time for a few more questions. Yes, far right. Whoever that hand is, I can't. Yeah.
So until a few years ago, or just recently, the NFL didn't really acknowledge safety, and you know, with the whole lawsuit. Besides that, Chris, your statement was very profound. My question is how are you going to bring awareness to the players? You know that, you know, power in numbers. How is this going to work to make these changes? Because I'm telling you that I don't think those execs in the NFL room are willing to make those without some more profound statements like yours. So what's the awareness going to do, or what are you going to do to bring this awareness to these guys that love the game so much?
Well, if I might just give an interesting context. After Junior Seau took his life, that was a major turning point. Everybody loved that guy. He shot himself, and he looked so healthy and happy. Immediately, the NFL started to promote
Heads up.
well, no, the Gordon,
Oh, Sam.
Sam Gordon, this 9-year-old girl sensation. YouTube. I mean, she was a good football player. She was scoring touchdowns and playing with boys. The media put her right next to Roger Goodell in the press box. She was on the front cover of Wheaties.
Yeah.
That was an amazing
Marketing point.
marketing ploy. So, in my impression, it's the best. My take is that we educate parents and give them the educational knowledge so they can make a determination whether or not they want to start their kids on that track. That's, I feel like, the greatest responsibility I have as somebody who's aware of these things, somebody who's got some brain, marbles moving around, and so the young kids, starting now and informing them and creating educational tools so they understand the risk better and how the brain functions. And we should be celebrating.
Now,
Yeah. So that's out of my input.
Yeah, I don't think a paradigm shift is going to come from
Yeah.
a hierarchy. I don't think it's going to be top down. It has to be grassroots.
Yeah.
Unless there's more guys like you who are just saying,
Every one of
Yeah.
us came from the bottom. Every change in cultures came from grassroots, from the bottom up.
Exactly. So I don't know how yet, but it has to be the community of players. And
I mean, does somebody have to die on the field on Sunday on live TV?
That's not going to matter.
That won't matter, will it? You don't believe it wouldn't make a difference?
well, Von Gammon, the Georgia player, and the guy at Army,
And those are typically broken necks or other issues, right?
Should I go on? Americans are ran by insurance and litigation. We might not like litigation. It has a bad taste in most people's mouth. But what's going to change sports for youth sports is litigation. Bottom line. More lawsuits that require changes. There's moms like myself who are losing our sons at early ages to reckless driving, suicide, and drug overdoses that have CTE. Those moms are banding together. I mean, I'm here to tell you, if it's my last breath, there won't be any plastic helmets. There's going to be athletic trainers. Little kids aren't going to be playing. And you're not going to be able to buy insurance for a 12-year-old to play when I'm done.
George, you want to comment about insurance and Wells Fargo's program?
Yeah, I can talk the insurance issue. Like I said, I was forced to sue for work comp to get my second, third brain surgeries paid for. In 2012, the 49ers work comp carrier, the Travelers, sat down with me and wanted me to settle. They offered me $73,000 to close out my knee case, and I'm scheduled for a total reconstruction or total replacement of my left knee. I've had 3 surgeries, 2 since I've retired. And so $73,000, and I'll be responsible for all my brain surgeries, all my knee surgeries, my grand mal seizures, everything. We said, I can't afford to do that. That was February 2012. They have paid 0 bills since then. They owe one of my medical providers $34,000, another one $9,800. They owe me over $3,000 out of pocket, and we're back into another big lawsuit against them just to get my earned benefits. So that's one aspect of the insurance. The second, as I mentioned earlier, who's going to write a plan for the young kids to play when all this plays out, when it's proven that it's causing brain damage. And then the third would be there are some programs right now, Wells Fargo, their Play It Safe concussion care program, which offers for a minuscule cost. I believe it's like about $4.50 a player for high school teams particularly, that if a kid suffers a head injury, a brain injury, that will cover them all through whatever treatment they need. So that's a step in the right direction. There's a lot of little short, choppy steps that people are doing. And again, I don't think there's any silver bullet that's going to... We need a whole bunch of these little changes and things and people to step forward if we really want to save the game.
I just want you to access Michael Oriard, historian about... he's written... Are you in your 6th or 7th book? Whatever. But Michael's got more information about the history and evolution of the game itself, how those rules changed the dynamic to make the game even more dangerous, how the media portrayed the game, selling paper. I mean, that's just, I mean, he's any questions for Michael Oriard? Yeah, stand up and shout.
Well, I'm just for Michael.
Oh, well, we're taking Michael questions only.
Taking Michael.
Any questions for Michael? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Did you have a question for Michael? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm one of these guys that doesn't think the game can be safe. I mean, I don't think you can make the game safe for dog fights. You can't really make football safe. And I think the game itself, let's maybe for him, I think the game itself teaches some wrong values. I mean, teaches might makes right. You're rewarded by hitting your opponents as hard as you possibly can and inflicting injury. Violence is a form of recreation.
Do you have a question?
Yes. Does he see any way, besides litigation,
Can you have him come up?
put an end to this violence? Anybody suggested?
Well, I get really defensive actually when I encounter the idea that football is not only brutal but brutalizing. You know, and I don't just think personally about this. I think about my teammates who are, for the most part, impressive men that maybe I didn't have a whole lot in common with beyond the football field, but they were really impressive men. And so, you know, every now and then we have one of these incidents, of course, where, oh, they did that horrible thing because they play football. No, that's not the case. My sense of, excuse me, of football is that it's compensatory. You know, it embodies a kind of archaic form of masculinity that has no function whatsoever in our society anymore. But either for cultural reasons or for biological reasons, it's still really appealing. We desire or need it in some form or other. So I do wonder what happens if we do away with football. And, you know, is the damage it's doing so great that we just have to find an alternative to it? You know, back to the previous question too about, you know, the NFL, and nothing's going to happen from the top down. The one thing that we have going for us to pressure the NFL to do something is that they are immensely concerned about what they call their brand, their image, their audience, and they have this, you know, somehow 40, 50 million of really diehard fans, but then they have the 40 or 50 million of casual fans, including a lot of women. And if they don't seem to care about the well-being of their players, they're going to lose a lot of that audience. So whether caring is the same as seeming to care, they're going to have to act as if they do care. You know, their worst nightmare is that the medical evidence become definitive that, you know, a very large percentage of players are going to be long-term damaged by this. On the other hand, they can't afford not to try to, you know, support the research and so on because they don't want to look indifferent. And so things are going to play out messily even in relation to the NFL. You know, one of the nightmare scenarios is that where it's really happening is where parents are not letting their kids play football. Well, which parents are not letting their kids play football? It's parents whose kids have alternative ways of expressing themselves and succeeding and all that sort of thing. So the nightmare scenario is that the NFL is played only by, you know, lower class, primarily minority young men, you know, for the entertainment of the privileged, you know, and predominantly white majority. And you know, the NFL doesn't want to see that happen. They're the closest thing we have to a mass culture today, and they would just become another niche sport like Ultimate Fighting or whatever. So the NFL can't afford indifference, or at least the appearance of indifference. And so the possibility of the game becoming safer, you know, George was talking about in the 60s, you know, I learned to block and tackle with my shoulder. I graduated from high school in 66 and college from 1970. Through high school, I blocked and tackled with my shoulder. In college, I learned to stick my head in the numbers. And, excuse me, guys we interviewed, some learned it sooner than I did. So I've wondered, can we go back? Can we take the head out of football? You know, we can't take the helmets off without it looking like rugby. But can we take the head out of football in some other ways and block and tackle with our shoulders more and still get the charge from it? And I don't know the answer. You know, when I think about Chris, you know, I was an offensive lineman, and, you know, I could steer my head. When Chris is filling the hole, you know, with that 290-pound fullback coming at him, he can't hit him a glancing blow, you know. So, you know, is it even possible to take the head out of football? enough to make it safer. The older I get smarter, but what happens is I know the questions better than the answers. But I do know that the answers are complicated and messy. I don't know if that helps at all.
Out of respect to our time, we're about 8 minutes over. So I want to thank you for attending, and it's just an honor to have worked with these guys and be on this journey. And it's going to continue as our Brain Matters cross-country tour. So thank you.